Eric Dailey Jr. confirms UCLA is not going small. Why is that good for Mick Cronin and UCLA?
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And where we get started today, notice the report put out by Ben Bolch of the LA Times. With quotes from Eric Dailey Jr., UCLA hosted an NIL event featuring the men's basketball players, the women's soccer players, at the opening of the new UCLA NIL store. All right, so if you want to go get some merch, support the team, support the program, support the players, I would suggest checking that out. But the quotes, especially from Eric Dailey Jr., took some notice, right? I saw Ben Bolch post about it. He wrote an article about it. I did not read it, but I noticed how it said, I think maybe the most important quote. This is what Eric Dailey Jr. was saying with the microphone. All these people have the microphone. Dailey Jr. said, "It's my natural position about going small. We kind of played small ball last year with Tyler at the 5 last year, and with our new recruits coming in, we've got more size at the forward and power forward positions. What y'all don't know," continuing this Eric Dailey Jr. quote, "is I played guard my whole life. I actually played point guard. I played shooting guard really until college, and then I started playing the forward position just because of my height." So here's the thing. UCLA says, let's go. Like, we're going big. And as much as it sucks that Iamaleava is now at Michigan, right as it seemed like maybe Cronin would have been willing to play him a lot more minutes with Bilodeau at the 4, with Dailey at the 3, things that we just did not see last year, where I think UCLA maybe could have thrived, but it's going to need a lot of improvement defensively from both Bilodeau and Dailey to do so. That means UCLA is going to count on a few things. It means I think they'll have matchup heaven with Eric Dailey Jr. at the 3. He was already a really good scoring 4, bit undersized as a power forward, but you put him as a small forward, I think that would fit him a lot better. Now, can UCLA continue to dominate defensively with him at the 3 and Bilodeau at the 4? Well, the difference is Bilodeau's not going to be guarding and trying to score on 7-foot guys, 6'10 guys. As an undersized 6'9", 5, UCLA understood we were going small. And when Marta was coming off the bench, that's when they would thrive, when they can put one of those guys, Bilodeau or Dailey, as the 4, and they could have rotated with a true center. It's not really the option they have this year, which puts a lot of emphasis on incoming transfer Xavier Booker and Steven Jamerson. First, for Booker, this is a guy who's 6'10", coming from a tough, hard-minded, tough-nosed, extremely effort-minded coach in Tom Izzo, right? So I think he might be right at home when it comes to, all right, this is what I've dealt with. I'm not going to be surprised coming to Mick Cronin and dealing with his demands defensively. Now, can he do it? Will he be allowed to sit by the 3-point line, or will Cronin force Booker to go inside? We saw a lot of times for Mata, he'd stick around the perimeter, put out some screen, and then work his way to the paint. Booker, obviously a lot more athletic, gives up some size, 6'10 to 7'3", but a lot more athleticism, and would live and die sometimes by his 3-point shots, which UCLA, when Mara's in the game, is not going to get those 3-point shots. Now, there's rumors that Mara could shoot him. That's not something he displayed in a game in a UCLA uniform, and now he's to Michigan. Booker, albeit at a lower percentage, if he turns down a couple of open looks, uses some athleticism, becomes a much better rebounder, and learns not to get beaten from the backdoor cuts from the opposing offenses, then maybe he can turn into that elite defender or just something serviceable that UCLA can use at the 5, right? They don't need Booker. UCLA does not need Booker to be a superstar. They don't need him to be what Iamaleava hopefully was going to be and is now no longer going to be a Bruin. They don't need him to be that player. Just being serviceable, being able to clean up mistakes defensively behind maybe Dailey Jr., behind maybe Bilodeau, although with them playing more natural positions to their skill set, that could lead to more success. UCLA won't be playing, I think, as small next year with Bilodeau. Now, we know what it looks like when they can go small, and I think that's a good weapon for the Bruins to be able to have, that they want to go small for 10 minutes, play some of these mid-majors, play some of these programs where we want to be a little bit quicker. Bilodeau can get around, stretch the ball out with a three-point shot. Dailey can attack the rim and shoot it from deep. They had that opportunity. Having that as a 5-tool offense as opposed to your only weapon, your only trusted source for Mick Cronin, I think that's a big difference heading into this upcoming season. Now, backup big and Steven Jamerson will play a big role. The development of Trent Perry mixed in with the transfer of Jamar Brown, who can win time off the bench. Because if this is how this is going to go, that means it's Donovan Dent at the 1, you've got Sky Clark at the 2, Dailey at the 3, Bilodeau at the 4, and a mixture between Booker, mix in Jamerson, depending on what Cronin wants to do. And just because Booker's the more talented, the bigger name of sorts, that doesn't mean he won't go with a trusted veteran who might not be as talented. He might go with Jamerson to start, and he might bring Booker off the bench to say, hey, you've got to earn these minutes. You got to grow throughout the year. I'm not sure where Cronin's head is at when you look at practice so far out. We're obviously in late April with the season still more than half a year away. The Bruins got to develop and grow. Maybe there might be one last second transfer coming in that could help bolster that front court. That means Booker needs to develop. And the thing is, just seeing from Spartans fans threads, from my Spartan source, he's got to develop, but he's also coming from a coach where it's like one mistake and you're out. He's used to that. Now, I think Cronin, it must have a lot more patience with Booker. He's going to have it. Because if you're going to be pulling out your 5, UCLA is then all of a sudden you have to turn into a small ball team again if you don't have patience at the 5. And that's why you need this kid and Jamerson in his, senior season to develop another year, or throughout the year, I should say, in order to become a lethal combination where Cronin likes to play a little bit smaller at the 5 than what he's used to when he had a couple of 7-footers. That's not what Cronin's used to having from Cincinnati. Used to having at UCLA, having a front court full of 7-foot tall towers. Okay. Now mixing in Dailey's opportunities at the 3 and Bilodeau at the 4. Can those guys be serviceable defensively with the other 2 on the wings? If Perry grows, if Brown is really, really good, like he's displayed at the NJCAA level as an All-American, as he showcased as a Summit League all-leaguer, coming from UMKC to UCLA, all these players to hopefully make up for the lack of defensive prowess with the absence of Kobe Johnson, the lack of veteran leadership with Stefanovic now out of the room as a veteran leader for 2 years for UCLA. That's what the Bruins need to grow as a group. But doesn't look like they're not attempting to go small, which is a good thing. They can go small, but they're not going to attempt to do it, I think, 40 minutes at a time, every game. That's not the game plan. It does suck, obviously, with their best big man transferring out to a place that thrives with 7-footers that Dusty May likes to roll with at Michigan. This is the card the Bruins dealt to themselves. This is how it all played out. At least we'll get Dailey at the 3 and Bilodeau at the 4 from what Dailey had to say at this UCLA NIL event, saying, all right, this is going to be entertaining. Let's see how this goes. And it's going to put a lot of pressure on these incoming transfers. If UCLA wants to be big time, beyond just Donovan Dent leading the charge and some of these returning guys, they need the big men in the front court to develop, and some of the guys returning, because we haven't even talked about Eric Freeney or Brandon Williams. Hopefully are game ready in a redshirt sophomore season or a redshirt freshman season for Williams or Freeney. Next, we're going to talk about, all right, what does UCLA football have NIL-wise? What did DeShawn Foster throw out during his latest media availability? That was interesting, what they've done recently with Nico, bringing him in, and what's something that's still a little confusing and erratic about the UCLA NIL setup. We'll talk about that next on Locked On UCLA. The NBA playoffs, they're here. All right, FanDuel, they're giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel, you place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if that bet wins. FanDuel makes betting incredibly easy, whether you're picking your favorite team, diving into the player props. It's from three-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props. And even after the game tips off, combine your live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head out to FanDuel.com, and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. All right, cruising on. We're talking UCLA football. They've made so much noise nationally with bringing in Nico Iamaleava, and in Madden with seeing Joey Aguilar going to Tennessee. What was UCLA starting quarterback, trading for Tennessee starting quarterback, and getting what once was a one-time UCLA recruit turning into a transfer from Arkansas to UCLA. It made so much noise. DeShawn Foster wants the buzz. He wants the haters. He wants it all. He said it himself, you got to want haters. You want to be in the conversation, all right? That's basically what he was saying to the reporters, what he said out loud. I want to be a part of the conversation. To even get to the table, you got to be a part of the conversation. And then you get to the table, then you can play with the big boys. And there's obviously the different ideas of what UCLA football is. There's the one as a UCLA fan. There's the casual LA fan. They all go to USC, blah, blah, blah. There's the idea that you see the Spencers of the world from Locked On College Football, Locked On Oregon Ducks. It's a joke. They're not going to win more than 2 games, yada, yada, yada. But the Bruins do have to prove themselves. They went after an unproven entity in DeShawn Foster a year ago to replace what was a college football icon previously in Chip Kelly at Oregon. When he came to UCLA, they paid a lot of big bucks to bring him in. And, did it lead to supreme success, a Pac-12 title, leading to Big Ten dominance when he left the program? No. He jumped, cashed in at Ohio State, and is now cashing in as the Raiders offensive coordinator. All right? So now here UCLA is still somewhat reeling from that, but DeShawn Foster has the sight. He has the oversight to see, hey, this is where we're lacking in these areas. We had buzz when I was a player in his mind for DeShawn. They had buzz when he was a star, and he's like, okay, it wasn't that long ago when the Bruins were buzzing in the Rose Bowl in the Jim Mora era. They even had a year or two with Chip Kelly where it was entertaining to watch, where we've forgotten how entertaining the Charbonnet, DTR, Jake Bobo year was when the Bruins were top 10 at one point, pushing for a 10-win season, which just has not happened all that often in UCLA's history. It just hasn't. But now UCLA has had to play catch-up from being in debt, growing as an athletic institution into a program that has maybe just football, not just football in general, but one, as UCLA was in 2024, honored as an institutional NIL achievement award. They weren't given the overall award for the best institutional NIL program. They were among the top, I think, 8 or 10 in the 2024 NIL awards, which is great. They're trying to do the Bruin for Life, Champion for Westwood, and eventually UCLA has broken it up into the 3 umbrellas. You bring it up into the spring, the Bruins go out there and they can get Donovan Dents. They can go out and they can get Nico Iamaleava, who is still expensive, much cheaper than his $4 million ask, his rumored $4 million ask, if you ask his family, compared to, all right, we still got to bring in transfer for football, bring in transfers for basketball. UCLA women's basketball is leading the champions for Westwood in terms of, hey, we want top dollar. We got to go keep Lauren Betts. We got to go keep all these players. If they want to go get Gianna Neepkins, if she does or does not commit to UCLA, they got to be able to compete financially and with the opportunities available in the facilities. And UCLA is slowly being able to do that. They're growing and growing. And now, after Cronin was literally complaining a couple years ago about his inability to go get the free agents, quote unquote, now UCLA says, we want that guy. We're going to win a recruiting war, an NIL battle, and be able to, even if we're not throwing out more money than some of these programs are, whether it be Kentucky, whether it be Kansas, BYU in some instances, right? UCLA's in the ballpark, and that's where it's Cronin's job to seal the deal, or DeShawn Foster, or his GM's job to seal the deal. Because if they're in the ballpark, UCLA, in their mind, when they're recruiting these guys, is saying, hey, location, opportunity, right? Name, image, likeness. You come to Los Angeles, you would think those opportunities would double or triple compared to some places. Just from being in LA, if you're a star, if you're a guy who can turn into something, Los Angeles is the right spot to be. Now, the bad in my mind is something that DeShawn Foster brought up during his earlier media availability prior to spring practice. This is what he had to say. Well, that the Bruins for Life is doing pretty well for UCLA football. Well, obviously, if you're able to bring in a transfer quarterback and then a number 1 quarterback became available in Nico, DeShawn says, we're going to go after it. We're going to negotiate. We're not going to lose out to $4 million, but we'll keep you in the ballpark and we'll bring in Nico, something he thought the Bruins had to do, had to go after. Even if they're the only team in the market for Nico, they said, we're going to do it and make it respectable, potentially in this NIL financial package. He didn't go into full detail, but what he's talking about, Bruins for life, the football part of this overall NIL opportunity is doing well. But the problem is, he mentioned how there's a bit of a communication issue. Like if you're donating to something, this is a DeShawn Foster quote, and you thought that was going to football and it didn't, if it could really get to us, we probably have a lot more. But for Bruins for life, it's actually doing a real good job. Rest of the quote, people just need to be aware of what's going on. I'm not sure if we're fully letting people know. Okay. Well, what does that even mean? Okay, let's remind everybody what the overall branches of NIL, not government, but NIL collective is at UCLA. It's called Champion of Westwood. There's 3 distinct funds. There's the Champion of Westwood Fund, which is going to support women's basketball and Olympic sports. Bruins for Life, which is exclusively for football. Brought in the existing Men of Westwood, which is the exclusive home for men's basketball. All right. So if you're wondering, okay, I want to donate to Champion of Westwood, and you're like, okay, and you don't really specify where that's supposed to go, next thing you know, hey, actually that's going to women's basketball, which is fine. But the confusing part is they have an overall name, which is the same name as another existing branch, which is going to support a lot more sports than if you wanted to support exclusively football. You're like, wait, men's basketball had its own. We're bringing it in, but we want to keep getting the money to go get the Donovan Dents of the world. I think it's, quite frankly, a little embarrassing that DeShawn Foster had to come out and say, yeah, UCLA is a program, maybe not just football, but overall as an athletics brand, we can't figure it out that one year they're getting an NIL award or being nominated for one, and now they're like, yeah, we could have a lot more money if people knew what was going on. Well, how are we making this confusing? Is it too many people confused, the old, the young, we don't know what's going on? Obviously, NIL is still a backroom, sometimes under the table deal. We don't really know the exact amount of deals these players are getting or being offered to go play, whether it be UCLA, anywhere, what the buyout opportunities are. It's a weird, wacky, ungoverned world for the most part until they decide to figure it out. What UCLA has is the 3 funds, one of which is the name of the entire umbrella, which I don't think is necessarily the best idea. All right. This was something they put in place in October of 2024. So a year ago, when they had the NIL funds, UCLA was maybe a little ahead of the game. They're giving one to women's basketball. They're trying to donate for football. Men's basketball, they had one or the other. And they're trying to simplify it. While simplifying it, they've somehow made it more confusing, where the head football coach had to come out and say, we're doing good, but we could get more money if people actually donated directly to football, where it seems like they might not realize it. How is that not embarrassing? So to have enough money to go after Donovan Dents, to secure Nico, to secure other players in the portal, keep players to UCLA, right? Remember a year ago, it was Jay Tuia going to the portal and then coming back after he was maybe flirting with Texas before returning to UCLA, where his heart was most likely in Westwood. It is slightly embarrassing to be nominated for an award, and now we're just confusing ourselves where they're not even getting the money to the right places. It's not being allocated in the right spots. The fact that he had to bring that up, wasn't even really asked that if you look at the real media availability, the questions, the little mini press conference he had before spring practice, he came out and made it a point to make it known, we got money, but I don't think we're doing a good enough job as an athletics department, as an NIL collective, to put it together where it's clear understanding for the people, the fans, the donors of UCLA, the people who want to give to these NIL collectives, that they know where the money's going. I think that's a little embarrassing. So there's a lot of good going on, but the fact that that had to be brought up, still a little bit embarrassing. And hey, let's shore it up and get the money in the right spots. Doesn't mean that the money shouldn't go to women's basketball or men's basketball or the Olympic sports. But if people are wanting the money to go to specific spots and they can't figure out where it's going, I think that's, quite frankly, a little bit embarrassing. All right. And people already are calling for the job of Martin Jarmond. I see it all the time for the AD. They're already saying it's an embarrassment that they're in so much debt, that they can't compete. We're in LA and we're eighth fiddle, whatever it is, to, the rest of the sporting world, when UCLA should be a lot closer in terms of information, knowledge, and love. They're a big brand. UCLA is a huge brand. Why can't we compete? At some point, we're just hurting our own selves when they're trying to raise money, getting in their own way. Guys who aren't getting in their own way are the guys who have worked hard enough, though, to get to the NFL draft. There are quite a few Bruins who may be mid to late round selections, but there is a Bruin or two that could get some first round, second round love. So let's talk about it on the opening of the NFL draft. Which Bruin might be selected first, and it might not be on the opening night. We'll talk about that next on Locked On UCLA. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. All you gotta do is grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign in to the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included. You're ready to play. Hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6. You can easily stream your favorite shows as well. Gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, you can watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney+, Max, and more. You can have all sorts of fun. Play the high-quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost and of a console. That's crazy. All you got to do is head to Amazon.com/FireTV Locked On. Again, Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K, 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube, 3rd generation. Obviously, a year removed from one of the most dominant defenses in UCLA history in 2023, the Bruins still had a pretty serviceable defense under Kaka Malloy year one, with some strong products and candidates to be productive players in the NFL. No Leatu Latus, no super guys who are going to go out there and dominate in the D-line. Maybe Femi Oladejo, who could comes out to mind as one of those Bruins who could be selected first, right? A late riser after the Senior Bowl, turning into someone that could get drafted earlier in the NFL draft. Now, I'm not entirely sure. I've looked at various mock drafts from ESPN, looked at all sorts of draft experts, and at the moment, only one draft in the early parts of this NFL draft process has a Bruin getting anywhere near the first round. And that Bruin is none other than Carson Schwesinger, the guy who was a Big Ten leader in tackles, went from walk-on to literal All-American, first teamer in the Big Ten. This is a guy that's coming in and would be the Hollywood story, the tearjerker, the guy who's worked through his COVID-shortened season in high school, right? COVID basically ate up his prep career. So probably underappreciated, under-recruited, but not underdeveloped. That was one things Chip Kelly was able to do. Find these guys who are walk-ons and turn them into, maybe not him specifically, but find the guys who could turn into something special, right? They found a diamond in the rough in the injured Leatu Latu. A lot of that had to deal with the relationship Latu had with Kaka Malloy. Came to UCLA, dominated. Again, the same promise. It kept going, right? Whether it was the players that wore the number 36 developing, or in this case, it was Carson Schwesinger, a literal leader in his senior campaign at UCLA. Anytime there was a tackle made by the UCLA defense, you're like, dude, this linebacking core is legit. Because Carson Schwesinger, of course, the heart and soul of the UCLA defense, and Kane Medrano can't go unmentioned. And then you've got Femi Oladejo, who shifted over to edge, and once he developed, was actually very fun to watch. Strong, could push his way through, sneaky athletic, but not overly athletic. And he's one of those guys that could go early. And let's not forget the big man, Jay Tuia, up the middle, defensive tackle on the D-line. Those guys could represent, amongst a couple of Bruins, players who could go earlier than the rest of the Bruins who might be unsigned, undrafted free agents, or get drafted at one point. So Carson Schwesinger is one of those guys, 225-pound linebacker, that as an AP first-team All-American, 136 tackles, about 11-plus tackles per game, and had one of the best single-season outputs since Eric Kendricks of a decade ago. We know how valued UCLA's former linebackers were, from Kendricks. Remember the years of Anthony Barr, when UCLA defensive players would pace some of the best NFL defenses, from Barr's defensive prowess with his great sack of Barkley against SC to turning into an NFL player. And then you got Kendricks, who's been in the league for quite some time. You mix that with what Schwesinger could potentially do if they just go by brand, name, image. You're like, oh, maybe that could work out. Obviously, times are different. Obviously, coaching staffs and development, each player is different. But if you like, oh, yeah, that UCLA kid could be good. Schwesinger, I saw from a Field Yates NFL mock draft of ESPN, he talked about how Schwesinger could be a guy that stays local and goes to the LA Rams in the later part of the first round of the NFL draft. Now, it's not likely. These aren't dominant guys. This could be more of a shocking first rounder. Femi Oladejo, as I've mentioned, is another guy that a late riser could be a sneaky second round guy. Maybe rises to the edge first, second round, or fall to the third round. These are all unknowns. Schwesinger most likely is the guy that could be that first rounder. All right. Now, I'm definitely not an expert in the mock draft details or the NFL drafting process. Each team has their own needs. There's trades. There could be a shocking amount of players who could go, right? There's obviously Mason Graham up there. There are so many dominant defensive players. Abdul Carter, so many players that have to go first that you're like, okay, at what point are these Bruins going to be drafted? Maybe they slide further down and they're a value selection late in the NFL draft. And I think a lot of these guys will be valuable. If you're looking at those cheap rookies on very cheap rookie deals over the next couple of years at value contracts, Schwesinger, Femi Oladejo, you mentioned Tawia, who could be a great addition on the D-line. Kane Medrano, who could just lead your team emotionally in the linebacker room as a youngster. And okay, let's not forget Maliki Matavao, Devin Kirkwood, some of those guys who are, all right, opportunists. I would lean more on the linebacker room, or former true linebacker if you mix in the edge with Oladejo as guys that would go first. And that's what UCLA is going to miss in this 2025 version. As much as the hype's going to be on Nico, as much as we'll see what is Tino Sunseri going to do as the offensive coordinator, as the QB guru, the QB whisperer who UCLA might have for 1, 2, maybe 3 seasons max if the Bruins play really well in offense and jump up significantly in offensive ratings compared to last year's rankings with the likes of Eric Bieniemy. They're going to miss the heart and soul of this defensive unit from Schwesinger to Medrano. All right, those guys really led the UCLA defense to some strong nights and some streaky nights where even if they weren't playing well, they would still make plays. They led to UCLA victories or kept them in games when the offense was sputtering over the last 2 seasons, whether they're better or worse from 23 into 24. So those are the guys that whoever is drafting, the Medranos, the Schwesingers, the Femi Oladejos, guys who are willing to take on new roles, willing to work for it, be that emotional leader and lead the charge and make plays while doing it, even if the offense is going as well, even if they're having a bad day. That's the type of guys that these teams are going to get, and they're probably with a good value, most likely. Maybe Schwesinger's gone early, maybe it's somebody else. But let's root for these guys. Maybe we don't see them night 1, but 2 or 3, those are good picks to get, and we're going to miss them and cheer for them dearly in the NFL. Until next time, we'll talk all about it here on Locked On UCLA. Any transfers, if Neepkins chooses UCLA in the women's basketball front or somewhere else, we will talk all about it here on Locked On UCLA. Hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA. Fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.